Hey everybody, so today I want to take a few minutes to talk to you about something that I have been learning and working on from a mentor of mine, Grace Lieber, and that is massive imperfect action. And so today I want to explain to you what that is, but I also want to demonstrate it for you a little bit because I am taking massive imperfect action on starting my first episode in a series, a weekly series of giving people tips and tricks that are going to help to transform your mindset one repetition at a time. And this comes from my background as a therapist, a firefighter, and a fitness and resiliency coach. But I want to share with you part of my personal story. I obviously can't share all of it or we would be here all day, on how I even got to this point on wanting to share some of this information with you. Okay, so it really starts back when I was in college and I was really struggling with trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life. And all of my friends seemed to have it all figured out, and I really didn't. I knew that I was interested in medicine, and so I took an EMT class, and then I had a friend who was involved at a fire department who said, maybe you should volunteer as an EMT and get some experience in the medical field and see if you like it. And I was like, oh, sweet, awesome idea. And so I did. I applied to volunteer at a local fire department as an EMT. And what I didn't recognize when I got there is I was like, man, this fire stuff is pretty cool. And I had a lot of encouragement from people that I was working with at the fire department to be like, hey, you should really go through the fire academy and volunteer as a firefighter too. But I have to be completely honest, you guys. I was like, I don't know. I don't know if I'm physically capable of that. It's a really physical and demanding job, and I wanted to do a good job at it if I went that way, and I just didn't know if I was capable. I was an athlete in high school. I was a tennis player and a swimming and did a lot of swimming, but I was no way strength-based athlete. So that was an area that I really needed to focus on. But at the same time, I really was interested in this. So I was like, okay, let's give it a go. I'm going to start working on my strength. I'm going to hire a personal trainer, and I'm going to see if I can volunteer as a firefighter. And as I started working towards that goal and actually accomplishing going through a small academy to volunteer as a firefighter, this job posting came up for the department that if I was going to work for a fire department that I'd really want to be a part of. And so I started going through the application process. And as I was doing this, and as I was talking to people and trying to figure out what they were looking for in someone and how to prepare for interviews and how to prepare for this physical ability test that you have to take in order to be a firefighter, that was pretty tough. I started becoming really passionate about the career. I was like, I really want this. And so I was working with a personal trainer and working my butt off. Well, it came time to start to interview, and I went through the interviews and I did all right. I was invited back to have a final interview, which would be the ranking interview. So what you have to understand about fire departments is a lot of them hire only every 2 to 3 years, and you're placed on a list based on how you do on your interview, and as positions come available over 2 to 3 years, then they take people off of that list. So this was the hiring process they were having for that 2 to 3 year period. So I had passed that first interview, and in order to get to that ranking interview, I needed to take this physical ability test called the CPAT that I had been training for. But here's the thing, I had never done any of the events that you have to do on this test in a row. And, but I had been working hard at it. So the day comes that I need to take this test. And I decide, well, it's a great idea if, one, I have all of my friends and family come because they all wanted to support me, and two, that maybe I should start experimenting with these different supplements that might help increase my performance on that day that I had never tried. Not a good idea at all. Not a good idea. And so I go to take this test, and through the test, you have to wear 50 to 75 pounds as you're taking this test. And one of my friends said to me, hey, Taylor, just so you don't run out of time, because some females run out of time, you should go as fast as you possibly can through this. So my heart rate is not only already jacked up from all of the supplements that I'd taken and my nerves, and one thing that you have to know about me is that growing up, I always struggled with kind of like performance and test anxiety. So that was always kind of like a struggle that I had to go through with my mindset. So I go out to take this test, and I'm going through it as fast as possible because that's what I've been told to do. And I get to this part that you have to drag a 180-pound dummy. And this was the part that I was kind of dreading or the most worried about. And as I'm doing this, I'm like dropping the dummy, and then I'd stand back up with it, and I would carry him, and then I would drop him again, and I'd carry him again, and I have all these people rooting for me, like, do this, do this, do this. So I finally get him across the finish line, and I go to the last event in this test. And what happens, I run out of time. And I literally collapsed on the ground at this point. I was just like so exhausted and so sick. I had like pushed my energy to the brink. And I remember looking up at some of the people in that department that are like, well, it's okay, she can try again in a couple years. And I was so stinking devastated, because that meant that I couldn't apply for another 3 years to this department. And when you are in your young 20s, like 3 years seems like a lifetime. So after I allowed myself to kind of wallow in my self-pity a little bit, I decided like I had 2 choices to make. The first choice was to quit and say like, this career is obviously for me and I'm going to find something else. Or the second choice was, okay, I'm going to learn from this opportunity, and next time I'm going to make sure that there's no possible way that I could fail this fitness test. And I'm going to do everything I can to get on that list, and not only get on the list, but be number 1 on the list. So fortunately, I chose option number 2. And I had 3 long years that ended up really being a blessing in disguise. Because I was able to really work on my fitness and really work on my mindset and like smoke the test the next time through. And I was able to get what I set my intention of was to become number 1 on that list with that department. And I was able to achieve that goal and get hired within the first round. So that's where I started really understanding like the power of our mindset, because I struggle with a lot of performance anxiety and test anxiety and confidence in myself. And through like working through some of these challenges, I was really able to overcome a lot of that stuff. And so I wanted to share that story with you so that you kind of know where my background is and where I'm coming from. And when I tie that back into massive imperfect action, right, it's understanding that if you wait until you're going to try to do something perfect, then you're going to be waiting a really, really long time, because it is really hard to be perfect. If I try to film this video 50 times, I'm never going to be satisfied with it because it's never going to be perfect enough. If I would have waited to apply for that fire department, like I never would have had the exact perfect answers or done perfectly well on every single little thing. But it's actually like going out and doing it that's going to progress you towards whatever it is that your goals are. Yeah, I may not have made it the first time that I took that physical ability test and I interviewed for that department, but it taught me so many important lessons that I was able to learn from and apply over the next few years in order to get that job that has now made me a better firefighter today. And so what I'm telling you is that when you start to go and achieve your goals, just doing anything, just doing something is the most important part of it. Okay? Not waiting until it's going to be perfect. So my challenge to you is to think of something that maybe you're not accomplishing because you have some fear of it not being perfect, and do it anyway and see where it leads you. All right, so thanks for listening. I'm going to bring back next week where I'm going to be talking to you about goal setting and why it is that you are not achieving the goal that you have set your mind to. Okay, so join me back next week to learn about goal setting. You can follow me at mindset.reps on Instagram, Mindset Reps on Facebook, or I'm going to start a YouTube channel with Mindset Reps as well. So I hope to see you then. Thanks for listening.